Hey, good morning, everybody. Sarasota Tim, coming to you from inside my Flagstaff camper I call the Crasher, because this is where I crash. It's a 2024 uh, 25 FKBS, which stands for Front Kitchen Bedroom Slide, and it is magnificent for one person. This morning I was sitting here reading over comments, uh, reading my devotional, thinking my thoughts. It's 4:55 a.m., almost 5 a.m. That's late. I did get up at 3. My sleeping is, as long as I get my 5 to 7 hours, I'm good. So whatever time my body says, shut her down, I go to bed. And a lot of times just sitting here looking at the phone and nodding out, and finally I go in there and I just lay down. Of course, you kind of wake up when you get in the bed, but I don't have any problem sleeping once I get into bed. And I don't need much sleep. Once I get my 5 to 7 hours, I don't get 7 hours. Who am I kidding? Does this look like 7 hours? But I'm sitting here having some coffee, and I was looking at the comments, like I said, and one guy, a guy or gal, I don't look at the username much. A lot of them are so confusing. I just, unless it's a picture of you and your name, if it says user or something, I don't know what it is. I don't know what your gender is. Anyway, this comment said you should do a video talking about your motorcycle days and about motorcycling. And I thought, well, if anybody wants to hear it, I've actually told the story to several people, and every time I meet somebody with a bike, say a Harley or any kind of motorcycle, a Gold Wing, I talk about how I had one, and I've had a few, and I wasn't just a guy that rode around town with one. My stories are all cross-country traveling motorcycle stories. So let's see if we can begin one. Uh, Early on, when I was, let's see, how old was I? I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was married and had the kids at home. They were young. And I had a little bit of money saved up. And we moved to Charlotte, and Charlotte was, right there at the foothills and all those mountains and twisty roads. So I started thinking about getting a motorcycle and enjoying. This is what it was. It's coming back to me now. I'm glad I'm telling the story. I was up at Lake Lure, if you know where that is, in North Carolina, and it was in the early '90s, '92 maybe. And there was a Honda Goldwing. If you don't know what a Honda Goldwing is, it is the biggest Honda motorcycle with the windshield and the radio, and you can ride two people on it. It's got saddlebags. It looks like a small Civic, and it was this candy apple red, and it was parked into a parking spot, and I was walking around, and it was up on its center stand, and people keep those bikes so shiny. It just looked so pretty with that fairing in the front and that windshield. It just looked like it was doing 75 miles an hour sitting still. And I thought, look at that machine, and you could ride two people on it, big, beautiful back seat on it, and all these buttons. I mean, there were more buttons than modern cars today. It was really incredible. A 1992. And I think it said, because in those days they had different trim levels. They had an SE, then they had, this one was called I almost thought of it. I almost said it. Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. So it was that trim level, and that put the seat in my mind. That's where everything begins. Once you start thinking about something, that's what you give strength to. And I've always been adventurous. I always like to travel, camping. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll do it. If it sparks my interest, I'm interested. And so So I bought one. I bought one from a guy. His wife was pregnant and going to have a baby, and they didn't need it anymore. And he put the package deal on me. I say that sometimes when I sell things to people because I put the package on them. He gave me rain suits. One wasn't even open yet. He gave me helmets, and they had these full face helmets. I mean, you look like astronauts, and they had intercom systems on the inside with a cord that hooked, and then it hooked to the bike, and your passenger and yourself could talk. You could communicate. All you had to do was talk just like this, and you could hear each other talking. And the bike was very quiet, but still, this was great. And then the music was playing in the helmets too. It had a full-on JBL music system, and as soon as you spoke, the music muted, and you could speak to each other. And the bike also had a CB radio, and I could just toggle a little button with my thumb. My passenger also had a toggle switch because we had learned, we joined these like groups, these chapters, these memberships with other people that had Gold Wings, and the passenger's job was to wave at other motorcycles, give signals, talk to truckers using the radio sometimes, and doing a lot of the things so that the driver could focus on the road and all that. So the passenger had a part to play, and you learned all these things. So I got it, and it was a teal blue. I think I gave maybe $10,000-$12,000 for it in '92. They're like $35,000 now. And he gave me all these helmets and riding suits. I had this riding suit you zipped up. It looked like a garage mechanic suit, but also looked like an astronaut suit. It was really, really nice, and everything was perfect. Folded in the bags, perfect. This guy really put the package deal on me. I couldn't say no to it. So I got it, and we enjoyed it. We went all over the Smoky Mountains when I lived in Charlotte, and my ex-wife loved it. She sat back there, and a lot of times, she would massage me or put ice on my neck because it would be hot, and she was a good rider. She was a very good rider, and we met a lot of people doing it, but mostly we stayed to ourselves. We didn't get into the group rides that much that so many people like to do. I've always been kind of a solo rider, and that's what I'll get to in a minute. So that was a Honda Goldwing, a 1992 SE. It was a Barbados blue, a teal green color, and I ended up selling it for not much less than I gave for it. It was a Honda Goldwing 1500. I think they're an 1800 now. The last one I bought was. And it was even a heavier bike than the newer ones. They upgraded the frame, made them more of aluminum, and it did some things to make them a little lighter. So it was a heavy bike. And if you got it over, I think the bike weighed 1,000 pounds, let's say, 1,100 pounds. And if you leaned it over 1 inch too much, I don't care how strong you are, that you're not going to hold it. It would go down to the ground, but there was a way to pick it up, and when it did go down to the ground, it had these things that it would hit on the side of the bike that kept it from doing any damage whatsoever. And I think I did drop it maybe twice. It had reverse on it too. These bikes are so heavy that if you were to back it in or drive right in to a parking spot, let's say on the road, and that road had a little bit of a grade on it, 1,000-pound bike, you're not going to take your legs and just push it backwards that easy. So it had a little lever, you lift it up, and then you use your starter button that you started the bike, that turned it into a reverse motor that backed it up ever so slowly, and you would just walk with it as it backed up. And it would back it up a hill like that. It had a lot of power. And that was, a lifesaver so many times. So that was my first big bike. It was a Honda Goldwing, a 92. And we traveled all over the Smoky Mountains, all over the twisties there, through Cherokee, and just all over the Smoky Mountains when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then before I sold that bike, I moved to San Diego. My business that I used to be in, the advertising business, where I sold automotive service coupons that got that included oil changes and tire rotations and those kinds of things for automotive service centers. I did that all over the country. I did it in North Carolina. I did it in California, and I moved to California and I took the bike, and the bike was so big I couldn't get it in the big Penske moving truck that we had. So we got the biggest Penske moving truck, a car carrier on the back to put one of the automobiles on, and then my ex-wife drove the truck to San Diego, and I drove the motorcycle for like 4 days or whatever it was, 4 or 5 days from Charlotte to San Diego when we moved there. And after getting there a couple of years later or whatever, that relationship ended. I kept my motorcycle. I bought a motorhome, a Class C. I had the motorcycle, my car, my motorhome, and a sandrail. That's another story for another time. I used to be a desert rat, and if you'd like to hear about it, let me know. I used to have a Volkswagen sandrail, and I would go out to Glamis and Ocotillo Wells out in California. And if you're watching me from California, or you know these places, and you have either dirt bikes, quads, or sandrails, you know all too well what I'm talking about. What an amazing, amazing place to go and do some off-roading with those kinds of vehicles. But anyway, I moved out there. That marriage ended. I kept my Gullwing, and then I sold it. I had, 3 vehicles, a motorhome, and all that. Then I kept the sandrail. I started doing that for a while, and I didn't motorcycle for a long time. So let's fast forward. We're going to stay on the motorcycle story because I'm going into the sandrail story now. But I moved to Georgia, to Atlanta. I left California, and I started thinking about the mountains again because I was living in Atlanta, and the mountains are a day ride from Atlanta. You can be up in Dahlonega, you can be in North Carolina, Helen, Georgia, Cherokee, all these areas, Bryson City, all these places, Robbinsville, Deals Gap, the Dragon. These are all my stomping grounds. I have been all over the North Carolina mountains in all those towns up there, all of them. And so I started thinking, I'm still doing my business. It was very lucrative. I was making very good money, and I saved again. And this is one of the cases where I was younger, that I did take payments out. I didn't pay cash for it. They got quite expensive, so I bought another a 2006. It was kind of a beige champagne color, and it matched this Honda Civic Si I had. Anyway, I bought this Gullwing, and I rode it all over the mountains again. It was a day ride, but I kept thinking to myself, I just want to go long distance. I just don't want to go out for a ride and come back the same day. I want to go so far that I can't come back that day. This is the adventure in me. These guys that have motorcycles, nothing against them, that take them out on weekends. They're fair-weathered riders. They enjoy it on the Sunday. They pull it out of the garage, take their wife, girlfriend, whoever, and go for a ride with some other people, and go to a coffee shop, or an ice cream parlor or something like that. Cruise the beach. That's fun. That's great. And you're meeting all these people, and it's a fun thing. But I wanted to travel. I would see people on the freeway with all these tents and sleeping bags and strapped on bungees of luggage that was a total giveaway that they were traveling. And to me, it just seemed like, gosh, that looks cool, I started reading books and started looking at things online. And I watched some movies. There's a movie, I shared it with so many of my friends. about traveling across country on motorcycles. And so anyway, they got me really motivated to want to travel on a motorcycle. Now, why the Honda Gullwing, in my opinion, is the best motorcycle on the planet as far as reliability, power, room to carry things, and all of that, dependability. I never, other than driving it behind the Penske truck when we moved, that was the only time I ever went across country with it. It was always around the Smoky Mountains. I did go camping up there and didn't come home that night, but it was, I was within about 2.5 hours from my house. And I would stay at these motorcycle campgrounds multiple times up in the mountains. There was a place called the Kickstand that I used to go to, and met a lot of friends of mine there, and I used to go there all the time. There was another place called Two Wheels Only. These are campgrounds that cater to motorcyclists, and when you would go there, you would meet people on dirt bikes, street and dirt. What do you call it? Dual sports, sport bikes. Lean overs, crotch rockets you call them, and touring bikes, Harleys, everything. But everybody was into motorcycling. It wasn't like, oh, you're not riding what I ride. So no, everybody was totally, and we'd sit around a fire at night, and there was a place that we would have meals at this place called the Kickstand, and they would go buy food and cook meals for us, and we would put some money in the can and whatever to contribute, but it wasn't like a charge. It was just something that they did. They enjoyed having us there. We enjoyed going there. It was the same people that would come every year that couldn't come as often as I did. I worked for myself, so I fired myself every week for 3 or 4 days, and I would go up there from Atlanta. I ended up working there, kind of, where I didn't even get to ride much around those Smokies. I've already ridden the roads many times. It's right up near the Dragon, Deals Gap. And I would end up helping with the dishes and the cooking, even the shopping sometimes, with the owner of the property. But anyway, the Kickstand Lodge was a great place. I carried a tent up there on my Gullwing, and I met some very nice people, some really good friends that I'm still friends with, and but I never went cross country. So moving ahead, I sold the Gullwing again. I sold that one. So that's two Gullwings I had. I had the 92 1500, and I had the 2006 1800. And it was I forgot what trim level it was, called the Comfort Package, because it had heated seats and heated and heated grips. And we'll get into the heated stuff in a minute when I tell you about my Harleys. So I'm living in Atlanta. I'm a roommate with a guy. He's got a huge 4-bedroom, brand new house in a subdivision. He was divorced. I started hooking up with these roommate deals that I was only paying $500 a month to rent, and it worked out very well, because this particular place that he only charged me, he had a dog, and when he would go out of town, he was a businessman, and when he flew out of town, he needed someone to take care of Rufus, his big, what kind of dog was it? A bull mastiff. It was a huge dog, and Rufus needed to be fed and let out and do its business and all that, and I would do that for him. So he gave me a little break on the rent, and I took care of those duties when he was needing it. But I had a bedroom, a bathroom, and another bedroom, and the rooms joined with two doors. It's called up there it was called a Jack and Jill. So I set up one room as a living room with my TV, my little dorm fridge, microwave, and whatever. Then I had the beautiful bathroom, full bath, and then the next door you could go through, because the bathroom had two doors. It went into a bedroom of where I had my air mattress. I slept on an air mattress for years. And I'm not talking about a big one. I'm talking about the regular Ozark Trail one that you blow up, not the real wide one that I ended up buying later on in life. They're really nice too. This was just the small one. And the bedroom was carpeted, so I didn't worry about it getting punctured or anything. And I just blew it up. I was a minimalist. That was the only furniture I had. He had a dresser in there. I'm getting off track from the motorcycle, right? But I just have to tell you. in the morning, I would just take the air mattress and lean it up against the wall and bring the covers down, like draped over it halfway. And the room would be just kind of empty with just the carpeting and my dresser. And I had a closet. And then at night, I could just pull it down, let it hit the floor, shake my blankets and kind of even it up, and just lay down on there and go to sleep. And I was very comfortable. I had 2 or 3 blankets on the top, so it was really nice. This was in Charlotte, and I lived there 5 years. And well, unfortunately, he lost the house. His business ended, and he got financially in trouble. And that was the only reason I had to leave that property. So, all right, so I sold that, and he had a garage, and I kept my car and my motorcycle in the garage. And, you know, Atlanta has weather like Jacksonville. It can get cold. It can get a little snow, a little sleet. It gets ice. And not having your motorcycle outside or your car, having it in a garage really preserves it. I mean, garages are worth their weight in gold as far as preserving your vehicle. So every night it was in the garage. So I sold that one after putting a lot of miles on it, just riding around the mountains in North Carolina and camping out at the kickstand. And if you ever go up to the kickstand, you can even mention my name. They know me very well. It's still the same owner, and her name is Mo. Mo and Bobby. She ended up getting married to a nice guy named Bobby. But Mo is still up there. So go to the Kickstand Lodge in it's in North Carolina. You can Google it, and it's a motorcycle campground. So anyway, when I met all these friends and all that, I stopped going there, and I moved to no. While I'm still living at the house, yes, while I'm still living at the house that the guy lost 5 years later, about halfway through or 3/4 of the way through my time living there, when I sold the Goldwing, I bought a Harley, and it was also a touring bike, you know, with the windshield, the radio, and the big bags on the back and everything. And it was red. It was gorgeous, and I changed the mufflers on it. I went from like a Honda Civic that you couldn't even hear run with all of these buttons and all this technology to a very basic, old school, shaking, loud Harley Davidson. But I loved it. The biggest thing that I like more about Harley Davidson touring bikes over the Goldwing is the seating position. The Harley has like you're riding a horse. Your feet are a little bit forward, and you're just, and then when you're on a Goldwing, you're very straight up and down, and your feet are straight down on the pegs. So it's kind of I always described it as a nerdy position. And while it was okay and great for like cornering and stuff, because you're not raked back a little bit, for long distance riding, the Harley was hands down more comfortable with those slightly forward foot pegs and your handlebars. And I always had the stock ones. I never got a little high riser, or they call it ape hangers, where some guys have them way up here. I didn't go for that. But I always wanted some that were a little bit higher, because when I traveled, I used to get a big pain right in my shoulder. A lot of you motorcyclists out there probably know exactly what I'm talking about. After a while traveling across country, it's just that you'd have to take one hand off the handlebar, and you'd have to do all this. It got to be so painful. Anyway, I never changed my handlebars. I had it stock, but it wasn't stock. I put a lot of chrome on it, and like a lot of guys do with Harleys, they doll them up a lot, spend a lot of money on chrome. So now let's get into it. Now we're talking about the travel. Now I'm going to, because of the stories I learned from people I met at the kickstand that talked about traveling all the way from the East Coast to Alaska, up into Canada, and all of these famous routes, and I just could visualize. Again, I'm so impressionable. As soon as I hear something that sounds cool, I'm like, man, I got to do that. And because I worked for myself, I was single. I wasn't paying much for my overhead, $500 a month for rent. I had the cash flow. I've always had, you know, I, I'm not saying I was rich or I had tens of thousands of dollars in the bank, but I could do what I wanted to do. Um, I've always been that way. And I could take the time off and start back when I want because it was my business. So I said, I'm going to take one of these trips. So while living with the guy that I paid the $500 a month to, that had Rufus, I decided I'm going to go to the Grand Canyon. And now you're going to laugh, especially if you guys have taken trips on motorcycles. I'm solo. I bought all this riding equipment. I bought what they call gerbing. I had a heated vest, heated gloves, heated socks, heated pants, and these all had like a wire that connected to one thing that went to the battery of the bike, and you could turn this dial and turn up the heat. I could ride in any temperature. I mean, it was amazing. This wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap. Each piece was $200 or $300. I had a couple of $1,000 worth of riding gear and a rain suit. I had what they call gaiters. It's this rubber thing you put over your riding boots, so when you go through rain, and a rain suit, and I could just keep on riding. So I had all this equipment. I went out to the Grand Canyon, but when I went, rather than taking the side roads and seeing small town America and stuff that I want to do with my camper, and I'm going to this time, instead of getting out on the freeway, I just, excuse me, I just went balls to the wall, as they say, and I rode 500 to 600 miles, no less than 500, mostly 600 every day, to my next point. I just wanted to get there. So, like a trucker, I've been everywhere and seen nothing till I got there to the spot I wanted to see. So, rather than taking my time, I just wanted to ride. I just wanted to sit in that saddle and ride. And I'd heard about stories too at the kickstand of these guys that brag about riding 1,000 miles in 24 hours. It's called iron butt. You got to have an iron butt to sit in the saddle that long. So I would do 500 or 600 miles a day, and that's getting it. And I would make sure that I got to a place. I used my smartphone to find a campground. At the time, you could get a little tent campground for your motorcycle for $10, $12 a night. $5. It was ridiculous. And I would go in, and they would have a bathhouse. I would take my shower. I'd make sure I got there a couple hours before dark. I'd set up my tent. It was a very quick setup. Get my air mattress. I carried the air mattress. It was a smaller one than I used at the house where I lived, but it was a single. I put that in there. I had that little fan heater that I've got down here right now. I still have it, both of them. And I would get the campsite that had electric, and I could plug that in, and I ran that into the tent, and I would be toasty, snug as a bug in a rug. My air mattress, my sleeping bag, and my heater, and my tent. And I could put all this together and fold it up and put it on the back seat of my Harley, and I had that look. I'm traveling. I got all my bungee cords. I got all my stuff packed up, like the Clampetts, like they used to say. Oh, I'm getting into this story now. I'm really reminiscing. This was great, man. And I'd get there a couple hours before dark and set up everything, and I'd get my shower, and then I would always go and find. Once I got out west, I love Mexican food. I think I might have mentioned that before, but you can't find it in Florida, not real Mexican food. And as soon as I got anywhere like Texas or somewhere getting close to the, Grand Canyon, I hit up a Mexican restaurant, and it would be somewhere close by, and I would go have my dinner and come back, and I'd crawl in my tent and go to sleep. I think I would take an Advil PM or something to wind me down because I was all hyped up. Couldn't wait for the next day to ride another 600 miles. I was charging it, man. I was hitting it hard. I was OCD. I didn't travel with anybody. I'm by myself. People were talking to me. People were approaching you. I got to say, when you travel on a motorcycle by yourself, people are very interested in, hey, where are you going? What are you doing? You go to a gas station, people see you, people in cars, not just other bikers. And, they see you all packed up. They know you're just not a local. You're moving around. And they're like, where are you going? What are you doing? And a lot of guys would want to talk to me. And I'd be living their life, they would say, some of them. And if you have two people, though, the saying is, if you're riding with somebody else, two or more, you're a gang. People were just like, yeah, look at those guys. They're doing their thing. It's interesting. And, they'd probably just leave you alone. I mean, some people might say something, but most people wouldn't. But when you're by yourself, you're approachable and people are intrigued. And so you're meeting people and you love telling what you're doing. And I remember meeting this one guy, him and his wife, and he was telling me how he was living his life, man. He really wished he could be out doing that. And I hope he did. I hope he got one. But anyway, I would come back to my tent and get in there and turn that little heater on and, go to sleep. I'd wake up at sunrise. I've always been an early riser. And here I go, folding everything up nice and tight, deflate that air mattress, suck all that air out of it, squeeze it tight, get my bungee cords out, put everything back exactly like I had it on the bike the day before. I had these little bags that opened up on the side and the back. You've seen them. There's a trunk on it. You could put stuff in there. I had fitted luggage that fit in the trunk and the saddlebags. You just open them up and you could pull these bags out, soft luggage, and I had it made, man. I had all my gerbings and my heated stuff. I had all my rain gear, and I had my extra clothing, my leather jackets, everything. And so I went to the Grand Canyon, and I will never forget my roommate. My friend would tell me, dang, you were already there? I went to the Grand Canyon and back to Atlanta in 4.5 days. 4 days. It was quick. It was like 4.5 days. Whatever it was. It was very fast. I just went there. I got to the Grand Canyon. I looked at it, and I drove back. And it was just all about riding to me. And the Grand Canyon was fascinating. It was something that people always say, pictures won't do it any justice. Talking about it doesn't do it any justice. Unless you go to the Grand Canyon and see it with your own eyeballs, you're just not going to believe it. It's an amazing place. And, it was weird for me. It's just kind of funny. You're going to laugh. But as I'm riding out of, what's the name of that town you get off on is it 20 or is it 40 that you get off and you go to the Grand Canyon? It takes this one road for probably 20 miles, and it does this. And you're looking out there, and it's just a flat, like, where is this Grand Canyon? This is the road to it. Where is it? I don't know. I'm thinking about something like a mountain or something. I'm stupid. And it's a hole, so you're not going to see it. And actually, you're not going to believe this, but when you get to the Grand Canyon and you go to the parking lot, you still don't see it until you walk up to it. I mean, as you're getting kind of close, if there's an open view, you can see because it's like 10 miles across or something, you can start to see it. But you really don't see it until you get there and look down into that thing. And it's quite amazing. Someone had once told me that to really get the grand feel of the Grand Canyon, you need to walk, down one of those trails, for maybe a half a mile or a mile, and then come back. And that'll give you a better feeling. I never did it because I was warned for every one step you go down, it takes 2 to come back. So it's quite arduous. You don't ever want to go without water and all that. But, a short little walk down, you can just do that while you're there visiting and, and check it out. But, You know, they got donkey rides, they've got river rides and camping down in the base. You can see down there. I saw a movie one time where people were lost. They had no way to get out. It just solid wall up there, and you know, it could be a very scary place. You got helicopter rides, they got all of that. And then over on the north side, they've got that thing you can walk out on that you pay money. It has a glass sidewalk. You look down, they take your picture and all that business. But that was trip number one on the Harley, and that was what got it into my blood. Now wait till you hear this next story. This is really this is the ride of the lifetime. This is the ride I've done a couple of times. The next time I did it in a car. So the next time, where was I living? When I took the ride all the way across to California. I went right on past. So, where was I living? The same motorcycle. I put 80,000 miles on this red Harley-Davidson Electra-Glide. It wasn't the Ultra. The only difference between that and the Ultra is the Ultra had some brake lights and tail lights on the trunk, and it had this fairing that was down in front of your legs that a lot of people would take off in the summer so more air would come on you because they were so hot, you know, to ride. They don't have radiators like the Gullwing. They're air cooled. So anyway, my next ride, I pack up and I said, I'm going across country again. This was too fun. That was too quick. I'm doing it again. The camping out, eating the Mexican food, repeating the same thing, the tent, the Gerbings wear, the whole deal. So I took off. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I got 3 cross-country trips. Oh my gosh. I forgot about this one. No, there's 4. All right, let me get to this one. This was the grand trip. I take off. I'll shorten the story. I went through all those places. I went right past the Grand Canyon exit, saying, "Oh, I'll get it. Oh, I'll get it on the way back." I was again in a hurry to get somewhere. I'm going all the way to California. Where am I going? I'm going to Big Sur. I started watching YouTube videos and stuff about Big Sur, and I drove it one time in a car years ago when I lived in San Diego, and down through Pismo Beach and all the way up through the wine country and over till you get to the water, and then all the way up to Carmel. And so I got there at the bottom, at the south end, and I come through wine country. The most amazing hills and golden colors of these wine country hillsides that you go through Pablos, San Pablos, something other. There's some wine, a lot of wine made out there. I get there, went to Hearst Castle, looked at it, didn't go in, and just drove past it. And I got on Big Sur. Now I'm riding up the coast of Big Sur. Huge bluffs. You know what bluffs are? Just huge cliffs with breaking waves of the Pacific Ocean over rocks that are just off the beach. You know, big giant rocks that come out of the water, and just every turn you took was another amazing view. It took me a while to get up through Big Sur because I kept stopping. I took photos, taking in the views and all that. I got all the way to the top to Carmel. Carmel is a magical place that you come out, and it's where Clint Eastwood has a restaurant there, and I think he was mayor or something up there. And there's also a real famous biker sports bar or something there. It's one of their locations. Anyway, I met some people at a gas station getting gas, and it was getting late, and I needed to find somewhere to camp and everything. And I can't remember the story exactly, but I was advised to take this one road. What's the name of the road? It goes up to Tahoe. So I've already gone all the way across country. I've got all the way to the coast. I took a picture with the bike in front of me. First, I took one picture when I crossed the California line, and then I took another picture where I couldn't drive any further. I was on the coast in California, as far west as I could go from Atlanta. So I go up to Big Sur, and then the person tells me about Tahoe. So I take off into San Jose and get all around where I connect to this road. And I'm going up PCH, Pacific Coast Highway. I'm way up in Northern California now, San Francisco, San Jose area. And I start getting on this road that takes me to Tahoe. I never seen trees so beautiful, so big around, so amazing. The road was fantastic. It was perfect. It was warm, and it was twisty, and it was a Silver Lake or something I stopped at. These little pullouts that you can stop at before you get to Tahoe. And I'm looking at all these views. I'm all by myself. I'm just taking it all in. Nobody to share it with. And that's when I wish I kind of did. But that is truly, if you've ever gone, what is the name of that town you come out of? A little small, below the mountains, little California town. People are really lucky to live there. Just so cool to be in California in one of these little towns like that. Not like LA and stuff, but just really, really nice. Jackson, maybe? Okay. So I get up to Tahoe, and then I discover, of course, half of it is in Nevada and half of it's in California. And I'm looking at it, and it's a blue lake. It is a deep lake. It is gorgeous. And they have a beach there. And, of course, I did one of these and rode on. And rode on. I was just seeing stuff as I went. I couldn't get there quick enough. I always wanted to go because my next stop when I left Tahoe was down the Sierra Nevada mountains to Death Valley. But I passed the, what's it called? The famous mountains that people go to. Oh gosh, I've never been there and I got to go there. It's in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The most famous camping state park. Oh gosh, how come I can't think of it? You go when you leave Tahoe and you're going down. If you go to the right, it's over there. It's in those mountains. Oh gosh, you're gonna laugh if I ever told you. I'm probably not gonna be able to think of it. But it's where the famous waterfall is, you know, and hiking and mountain scaling and all that. Okay. I got to keep the video going. It's getting long. So I'm coming down the high Sierra Nevada mountains from Tahoe, and it's just beautiful. And I come getting close to Death Valley. And before Death Valley, there's a place called Mono Lake. And right before you come out of the last part of the mountains, there's a pullout, and there's a big sign there with a thing about Mono Lake and all that. Turns out, Mono Lake is where Clint Eastwood made the famous Western movie, which movie was it? When he painted the town red and he came back in and kind of like rose from the dead. He was that sheriff they bullwhipped, and that town was afraid, and they needed somebody to help them from these guys that were going to get out of jail soon and come back and get payback on them. You know, I've seen all the Clint Eastwood movies. That's where that Western was made, right on Mono Lake. All right, so I go past Mono Lake, and I get to the part off the what is that called? The 321 or some famous road. It'll take you to Vegas, or you can go to Death Valley. So I took Death Valley. First time I've ever been to Death Valley. This is what I thought about Death Valley. I turned to the left to go, and you literally, after you ride quite a ways, you have to go down a lot of twisty roads and beautiful riding because Death Valley is below sea level. These are all things I didn't know. I mean, I heard about it being hot. Well, that's why it's so darn hot. So I go down. I forgot how many feet it is below sea level, but it was hot. So I'm trying to cross Death Valley in one day to get to Vegas so I don't have to be stuck in it. And I don't know what's in front of me. This was very courageous on my part because, you know, I didn't know if there was anybody, if anything happened. I'm riding a Harley Davidson, You know, it could break, something could happen. I didn't care. I didn't have any fear. I just took off, and I got to this place, quite a while into my ride. That was a tourist place that you could actually get a room, and I thought about camping, and I was going to, but it was so hot after the sun went down. I thought I could never sleep, so I just kept riding. Now this is something I don't like doing, but I rode all night long till daylight. I rode and rode and rode, thinking I could get to Vegas sooner than I did, but I didn't. And this is when I first time saw like critters in the road. That one or a little rat or some kind of gopher or something ran out. I think it actually hit my bike. Very scary, a very pucker moment. I was puckered up, man. And so finally I get to Vegas, and there's one, please excuse me for that. There's one place that allows tent camping in Vegas. Everything else is an RV place where they do not allow, at that time, no tent camping. And this was about 5 minutes or whatever from the strip, and I threw my tent there and camped out. I met the guy that kind of ran the place. He said, yeah, he had a shower place for me the next day. And I camped out in Vegas after driving all day through Death Valley, and I got to Vegas, and then I stayed one more night there because this time I did want to see Vegas. So the next day I'm driving up and down the strip on the Harley and everything, and I went to this Mexican restaurant, had Mexican food, and then I went to this one casino. I'm a winner in Vegas. I put in I don't know if it was a nickel slot or a quarter slot machine. I took a picture of it too, I don't have it anymore. And I won $100. I think I ended up netting $95 because of the $5 I spent before it hit. I cashed out, took my money, and left a winner. And I haven't been back. So I am a winner in Vegas. They don't have my money. So that was really cool. And I came back, packed up well, I already had all my stuff. I don't leave anything there. I had my bike, so I was ready to go. I get on the freeway, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to hit, in Flagstaff, by the way, which is after that town you stop at to go to Grand Canyon. Flagstaff, I stayed at a couple of times. That is a beautiful little town. It's it's real close to the Grand Canyon, and it's the high desert. There are greenery, there are trees. It's not deserty. It's 100 miles north of Phoenix, which is hot and desert. And you go to Flagstaff, they got snow, cold weather, trees, green. It's really beautiful. And so, anyway, I'm on my way back. I leave Vegas. I get to the exit. Remember, I'm going to see the Grand Canyon, right? I look over. I said, I'll get it next time. And so I didn't stop. I didn't go again. And it was like, you've seen it. You want to see everything new. Just keep going. I regretted that. So I kept going, and then what did I do? I took, that's another trip. That's another trip. Okay. And then I was on my way back, come across the 40 and all of that, and I just get back to Atlanta, I guess. I just kept driving, stayed in New Mexico, and all the states all the way through, kept driving my 500-600 miles a day, did my thing, came back, and believe me, when I got back from these rides, I didn't even want to look at that motorcycle. I didn't want to wash it. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see it. My butt hurt so bad. I was so tired of riding that thing. And what do you think happened a few days later, or not even a week later? I was like, oh, look at my baby. I got to clean it up. I can't wait to ride it again. And I said, I'm going to take another trip. And so I did. And this time it was take a trip to Yellowstone National Park and see Old Faithful. So this time my travel took me to, I'm still living in that house in Atlanta with the guy with Rufus. And he had changed jobs. It didn't require him to travel anymore, so I could be gone. I think he worked at home, actually. This was years before a pandemic, but he just worked at home. And I took off and I went to Yellowstone. And what happened was when I got to Wyoming and I went through Nebraska, I never saw more corn in my life. And when you go from the route that I took, I went from one end of Nebraska to the other. It's about as long as crossing the panhandle of Florida or going across Texas. You thought you'd never get out of Nebraska. And I finally get there and I get to Cody, Wyoming. And Yellowstone entrance, there's 3 of them, I think. One in Idaho, one in Wyoming or whatever. And I was on the east entrance in Cody, Wyoming. And it was closed. Why? Because there was snow and ice on the road. And until weather improved, it wasn't closed. It wasn't closed to maybe cars and trucks or had chains, but I'm on a motorcycle. So I stayed in Cody, but it was very fortuitous because they had a museum there that had like 3 parts. It had a western part of all the history of Cody and Wild Bill Hickok and Indians and stagecoaches and all this western stuff. Then it had maybe it was just a 2-part. And then it had a gun museum of every gun from muskets to machine guns, from oldest first gun ever made to today. And when you bought the admission, it was actually good for 3 days. And then they had gunfights on the street there in Cody, Wyoming. It was a little town. You could walk up and down. It was very cool. And I stayed 3 days in a tent at a campground just outside the entrance of Yellowstone, waiting for the weather to improve so I could go in. And so I spent 3 days exploring Cody, and because the higher altitudes in Yellowstone, even though it was close to it, they didn't have any snow on the road. It was cold though, and it was raining a lot of times. I was sequestered into my tent. I had my little heaters. I was set up, and so that was an experience in itself. They had this like old western town and things you could go and look at. They had all these different places you could go and sightsee, all in town. A rodeo. They had all this cool western stuff, and you guys know I love old westerns. So now in the museum they had a free computer where you could check the weather and all that. I think my phone was not on the internet or didn't have good signal or whatever. So I used that. I'm watching the Weather Channel, and I saw the window to go. So I pack up. I get into Yellowstone, and there's all these snow drifts, they call it, where they push the snow on the bank, on the side of the road. The road was clear. I had my Gerbings heated wear on, my full face helmet. I got my turtleneck thing and all this, my heated gloves. I'm riding, my boots, and I don't even feel it. And I'm riding through there, and I'm looking at everything. And I stopped because I've never seen snow that many times in my life. And I get off, and I go and walk onto one of these snowdrift where it's really deep, and my leg went straight down. And because that snow had melted a little bit and hardened, when your leg went down, it didn't just break away like powdery stuff. I almost broke my femur. I leaned forward, I lost my balance, my leg went down, and it hurt. I didn't do anything, but I was like, oh, you don't need to be getting hurt, especially when you're on a motorcycle. So I got out of there, and I didn't do any more. I just had to get in that snow. I had to step in it. I had to feel it. Here's a Florida boy or Georgia boy at the time, never seen snow much, and I had to just touch it. So here I go. I'm moving on. I finally get to Old Faithful. I see Old Faithful. Old Faithful only goes every 90 minutes, or I forgot how often it is, and it just went. So I got to sit there and wait. And they have this wood platform you walk out on way out there, and a lot of people are there waiting, and they have a gift store there that you can buy stuff. Of course, I bought something in there, little souvenir. Saw Old Faithful, and then that's it. I leave. I'm out on the other side. Now I'm going to go back to California or something. So I'm coming down the other end, and I come down into Reno. I get out to Nevada and Reno, and then I want to drop into Vegas again, and I'm going to hit the Grand Canyon. I'm going to do all this stuff, of which I did go to Reno, and yeah, that was another trip because I'm going north, I remember, in Reno, up Nevada, and I got on the 80. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm just going to skip ahead. I was on another motorcycle trip, and I'm taking Nevada all the way up to Reno to see it. And then there's the 80 up there. It's the highest freeway, east and west freeway we have. And I get on the loneliest road in America. It's called the Highway 50, I think. So anyway, I get on the 80, and there's gates on the entrance ramps where they close it in the winter because there's so much snow. The interstate doesn't even work up there, the 80. But it was open, and guess what? I went through Utah, Salt Lake City, and I went all the way across the Bonneville Salt Flats on the 80 that goes, the freeway into Salt Lake. But you can see it over there on the side. And believe it or not, there's signs every so many miles warning you to pull over and rest because the road is so straight for so long, you get highway hypnosis, and it causes you to become drowsy or whatever. And there were signs saying how many deaths this year of major accidents that they had from people not taking a break. So there's signs warning you. I don't know if you ever went across the 80 and know what I'm talking about, but that's what it was. And you can see why those cars and jet cars and stuff that they do these land speed tests don't have anywhere to run out of room. They can go forever. I mean, it seems like the Bonneville Salt Flats is the flat. So I've seen that, and then I'll skip ahead real quick because this video is getting very long. Another motorcycle trip I did take with a group. We left Atlanta, and we went to Sturgis for Bike Week. I went with maybe 4 other bikes. We shared rooms and all that, and we all rode together. And we got up there, and I saw the Badlands and Mount Rushmore, and we went to whatever that old western town is that everybody goes to in Sturgis. And we went to the bars, and they have bars you can drive your bike right in. It's like a big giant fort with a wall around it, and you can just ride in. They have burnouts in there. It gets crazy. Everybody's cool, but they're being Harley type people. They're trying to get wild. Most of these people are doctors and lawyers that have Harleys, but they got all the garb on and Harley Davidson shirts, and they're leather and what's that called? Deadwood. You go to that town there, and people are having their drinks and their beer and their whatever, and having their foods, and they're just having a good time, and they're just out riding. So I did that trip too. So after those trips, and this is to finish up the video, I said, I'm done. Like Forrest Gump. He got to the end of that run, and he stopped, and he turned around, and he says, I want to go home. I had a few motorcycles. I put probably 250,000 miles on my belt. I've been through the major cities like Dallas, Fort Worth, Atlanta, St. Louis, and all these towns, and parading in heavy traffic. That's when you're just idling, and that heat's coming off of you. It's very taxing. It's very wearing. And I never had an accident. I never had a trouble. And I just thanked my lucky stars, and I hung up my spurs. I sold the Harley, and I never looked back, and I never wanted another one. But then again, you can't believe a damn thing I say. I bought a Goldwing about 3 years ago, owned it for a week, and resold it because just didn't want it, and sold it. And so I realized then that my riding days are over. I still look at them. I never owned a crotch rocket or a sport bike, as they call it. I always wanted to. I was always amazed when I rode those mountains and those earlier stories I was telling you of how those guys could round those curves so effortlessly because they only weighed 200-300 pounds, and they were, big, fat, sticky tires that you could lean way over and you still had a lot of patch on the road. And, it wasn't like you were going to scrape on a big Harley or a Goldwing. And those guys always looked so cool going around like that, wearing their full leather and, looking like Mad Max. I never have rode one, and I never did do it. Maybe I would have gotten in trouble because they're very fast. They have a lot of power. And I did buy a dual sport. Who am I saying? I am lying. You can't believe a damn thing I say. When I moved into the Wolf Pup, when I left Sarasota, I had purchased a dual sport Honda. Was it a 250? Yeah, 250. I think it was a 250 that I brought from Sarasota to Boynton Beach, and I took that. I had a rack that went on the back of my Toyota 4Runner that you could ride the bike up on it. It was a little track, and it went into your trailer hitch. It wasn't a trailer or kind of a thing like that. It was a thing that went into your trailer hitch, and it had a little a bike track, like a bike rack, and it held a motorcycle. It was heavy duty steel, and I put the bike on that. I went and met a buddy of mine in North Carolina. We rode it in the mountains in these fire roads. It was amazing. You stood up a lot of times to let the bike, where you ride a dirt bike. That bike could go anywhere. I should have kept it, but I sold it. I should have kept it because the reason I sold it is I'm living in Boynton Beach, and there is 0 areas to enjoy a bike like that. It's all pavement. It's all flat land. It's all roads. There are no sand, hills, mountains, trails, fire roads, and that kind of thing down here. So when I went to North Carolina, I met my buddy. We were in, what town was it? Whatever it was such a cool ride, and we were going through this. It was a dirt road that had grown up, so we're just taking the one track, one where the one tire would go, where a car would go, where a car used to go, but it had all grown up, and I'm going through there blindly like nothing. Staying up on the pegs, off the seat, and the bike is just doing it has a lot of travel in the shocks. It really amazed me and those big knobby tires, at the clawing, at the ability. I mean, next to riding a horse, you could go anywhere with this thing. And we had a great 2-day ride, and I brought it back, and then I sold it. And that was the final of my motorcycle days. And of course, you can't believe a damn thing I say when I say I'll never have another one, but I don't want another one. I got nowhere to carry it. I'm already towing this, and I want to make this my new adventure. I often thought about a camper and putting a Harley or something on the back of it, as I knew a lot of guys that I saw in my travels that didn't ride their Harleys. They trailered them with their trucks or their motorhomes, and then they would take rides around the country where they would go, but they would have a nice place to stay in. But I always thought, you're not riding your bike, you're not tough. I'm riding mine to the place. But in hindsight, I wish I had a motorhome and I didn't have to go through those major cities, and I could just get over there, ride in my flip-flops and my t-shirt and shorts and my comfort of my car or my motorhome, and then pull it out, don all my gear, and enjoy a nice ride and come back to my camp. I never did it that way. I did it the hard way. And but that's the end of my story. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a sandrail one time. I'll talk about that maybe sometime if you want to hear about it. It had a Volkswagen motor on it. I went dozens of times to the desert with it, and I had a motorhome. I would take it out there, and I'll share that with you if you ever want to hear about it. But that's when I lived in San Diego. But I lived in Atlanta and in Charlotte. I bought these motorcycles. I toured the country multiple times. I forgot to mention, also my long trips were from Atlanta to Palm Beach County, Florida, where I had friends that I went countless times on the motorcycle, down to be in warmer weather and just to get out of Atlanta and go down there and see them. So I took, like I said, I've got 250,000 miles under my belt motorcycling, and I've just about, I think I've had my fill even till today, especially the way people drive today and texting and driving, and they're on their meds out there, and they have no courtesy whatsoever for other drivers, much less a motorcycle. I think that I don't want to ride another one. Just today, I'm lucky I'm still here. I never had an accident, and that way I know that I definitely crushed it.